Do you hate your family? That's a silly question. Most of us don't. There are there are some people who don't get along with their families, but generally speaking, you probably don't hate your family. You don't hate your spouse, maybe not. You don't hate your children, maybe not. There are. I'm an estate planning lawyer, so I hear the stories, and I used to be a divorce lawyer, so I heard a bunch of stories. So I know there are some problems within families. I know there's some disagreements within families. But generally speaking, you don't hate your children. You don't hate your spouse. You don't hate your family overall. So, why don't we prepare for the hard moments? Why don't we prepare our families for the hard moments? That is what we're talking about today on Legacy Her Way. Hi, I'm Tanya Hendrix. I'm your host for Legacy Her Way, and this is the podcast where we explore how women define and build legacy on their own terms. Legacy isn't just about what we leave behind someday. It's about the choices we're making right now, today, who we're building for, and what we're building and preserving. And it's also how we're creating peace of mind, or as I've been saying, margin or harmony along the way. So today's conversation, we're kind of diving into legacy as in preparing our families. I, as an estate planning attorney and probate lawyer, I meet with families after a loved one dies, and I see the toll it takes on families when things aren't prepared and done. In fact, the reason I switched to doing estate planning is because I saw the impact it had on my own family. My uncle died at 56. He did not have a spouse, didn't have children, and didn't have a will or any estate planning done. And because he didn't have a will, we had to do what's called an intestate estate. And my 87-year-old grandmother decided to be the personal representative of his estate. And so she, along with my mother, had to do all the things. So when someone dies without a will, it requires the probate judge to approve selling property, like your house, vehicles, any personal property within the house. You had to get permission to sell those things. And even though he didn't have a spouse or children, we still had to get permission from the judge to do everything. And so I watched as my 87-year-old grandmother, during the COVID year, in fact, had to go to the courthouse multiple times because we had to ask the judge to intervene and do things. I had to get his permission to do things. So she had to go to the courthouse multiple times, again, around people, masked up, doing the Germ-X, all of that. And she's walking around on a walker. So not an easy task for an 87-year-old woman on a walker. And then having to go to his bank and deal with like closing out his account, changing the money over to an estate account. She had to go get his taxes prepared and filed. She had to go talk to his employer multiple times and get things done. And his employers were great. I mean, that don't get me wrong. They were great and very helpful, but it still required her to go and talk to them and work through some things. Then she had to deal with the creditors calling, or not really calling her, but sending letters about debts that were owed, because when he passed away, he'd been sick for a little while and things started getting backed up. And so there were just things that had to be dealt with. And all of this during a time where she should have just been mourning the loss of her youngest son. She should have just been able to grieve the loss of her son, but yet she was having to deal with these things. And there are certain things that anyone has to deal with when someone passes away. They're still having to talk with a life insurance company or retirement policy, fill out paperwork to make sure the benefits go where they're supposed to go. But when someone dies without a will, there's just extra layers that are just unnecessary. And I know my uncle would have never, ever wanted his mother, my grandmother, to go through what she went through, to be under the stress and feel the overwhelm that she did during that period of time. I know for a fact he wouldn't have wanted that, but he didn't make a plan. And so when I watched as my grandmother carried the burden and weight of all of that on her shoulders, and I saw the toll it took on her and my mother having to run around town and do those things. I decided I want to help other families not have to go through that. I want to help other families prepare so their loved ones do not have to be under the stress and overwhelm and burden of going through an intestate estate. And so I switched to doing estate planning in 2021 full time so that I could help those families. And as I have been working with families since that period of time, I've seen, again, the toll it takes when someone dies without a will, or it's a poorly drafted will. For example, someone came to me, excuse me, and they did a do-it-yourself will. There are provisions in there there were not provisions in the will that could have saved the family a lot of money and a lot of time, which is one of the problems with do-it-yourself wills. You don't know all the nuances to estate planning. And so when that person prepared that do-it-yourself will, he had the best of intentions. He didn't want to see his family go through what they eventually had to go through. But because he did it on his own, he did not consult with a lawyer, he didn't have a lawyer prepare it who understood all the nuances, it ended up costing his family thousands of dollars more. Probably at the end, it was about 5 times more that they had to pay for the probate process than had he just paid me as the lawyer to do the will to begin with. And I saw the stress when I talked to that family member, when I told them what to expect. I mean, it was just very disheartening. And she knew that her dad didn't hate her. She knew, and every family member that comes in that has a do-it-yourself will, or there's not a will, they know that family member will love them. But they're wondering, like, well, why didn't they take care of this? Why didn't they do this? And I have a lot of people that come to me to do their estate planning because they just went through the probate process with their parents and like, I'm not leaving this mess for my kids to handle. I'm not doing this to my children, so I need to get my ducks in a row now. So when something happens to me, my children aren't trying to pick up the pieces. And so that's part of legacy. That is what you're doing today will impact what happens in the future. And I'm not going to say that not doing your estate plan is going to hurt your legacy, but it's certainly going to cause your family to question, why didn't mom do this? Mom was taking care of everything. She was always just on the ball. She was hustling. She was taking care of us through the years. I mean, whenever we had a scratch, whenever we were throwing up, when we were babies and needed our diapers changed, mom was the one there taking care of us through it all. Why didn't she do this? Why didn't she take care of this so that it would make it easier? Why am I having to go through all these hoops when mom could have just done a little simple planning to make sure we don't have to go through this? And so we as loving parents, as loving moms, and for those of you dads who are listening, it's time for us to make sure we get our things in place, that we do the hard things now and prepare them for the hard moments so that they're prepared later. So I'm not just talking about doing your estate planning. You absolutely need to do, at a minimum, a will. So a will, last will and testament, you probably know this, but just a quick little educational moment. A last will and testament directs where your assets go upon your death. It also says who's going to manage that estate. So in Alabama, we call it the personal representative. So that will directs the person, names the person who's going to manage your assets upon your death, and directs where those assets go. Now, FYI, if you don't have your own estate plan, your own will prepared, the state has one for you. It may not be what you want because the state says it goes to certain people and you may not have a relationship with those people. I've had consultations with people who they don't have a will in place and maybe they're estranged from a parent. So for example, maybe you're estranged from your dad. You're not married, you don't have children. And so if you pass away, the law in Alabama is that your assets go to your parents. It doesn't matter if one of them is in your life or not. the law says if you don't have a will in place, it goes to the parents. Or maybe if you're a parent and you don't have a will in place, it goes to your children if you're not married. And so maybe you have a child that's not part of your life. They haven't checked in on you in years. You don't even know how to contact them. Guess what? They still get a part of your estate if you don't do your own estate plan. So that's why it's critical to make sure you have that done, because you're creating a mess for those you love. I've had calls and consultations with people that are just convinced that their siblings should not get anything because they weren't a part of mama's life. They didn't take care of mama. They disappeared. But now that mama's dead, they showed up with their hand out. And like, why do I have to give anything to my sibling who didn't help out and didn't take care of mama? I'm like, well, mama did not take care of things before she died. And the state says it goes to everybody, all the siblings, all of her children. And so you have to do the hard thing now to make sure your loved ones are taken care of, your loved ones are provided for. That is absolutely critical when you have children, because in the will, you also designate who will be the guardian or guardians of your children if something happens to you. I recently just had this conversation with someone. I was just at a luncheon, and we were kind of talking about estate plan. It wasn't even me that brought it up. There were some financial advisors that were like, oh yeah, you got it. Talking to this young mom, it's like, you got to get an estate plan done. And when I explained that if you don't have a guardianship, if you don't name your guardian, when you pass away, if like you and the other parent pass away maybe at the same time or with a short period afterward, the probate judge, or not probate judge, but a judge makes the decision who gets to take care of your children. And it may end up being someone you absolutely would not want to raise your kids. I've had parents who are like, I don't want mom, or I don't want my mom, or I don't want my dad anywhere near my children. But that may, if you don't express that in a legal document, they could be the very people who get custody or guardianship over your children if you were to pass away. There's also this possibility if you're here in Alabama and all your family is in California, where will your children be during that period of time waiting for your family from California to get here? And under Alabama law, they're going to have to get vetted. That judges can't put children in the hands of someone that's not vetted. And DHR is going to have to vet them. So there are reasons why you need to get a will in place and have a guardianship provision, and maybe an emergency guardian. In that situation where you've got family out in California, maybe that's who you want to be your guardian. But you need to have a place for them to go for the day or so it's going to take for your family to get from California to here, because it's not a quick trip. It's going to take several hours for them to get from California to Alabama to take care of your children. And so in that period of time, they may be in foster care if you don't have a plan in place. So it's critical that you do the hard things now to prepare for the hard moments in the future. In that situation where you have minor children, if you don't have a plan in place, and then you have family members fighting over who gets them, you're putting the children in an impossible situation. Think about, you hear about these terrible custody battles. That's exactly what you'd be putting your children through, just between grandparents or aunts and uncles or whoever it may be that's going to be filing to get custody and guardianship over your children. Don't put your children in that position. Don't put them in the middle of a custody battle. Don't put them in a situation where they're having to choose between this grandparent or this grandparent, or this aunt and this aunt, or this aunt and this uncle, whatever the case may be. Because what happens sometimes is in that custody battle, one side may make it difficult for your child to have a relationship with the other side. And when one side prevails, they may make it difficult for your child to have a relationship with the other side. So put a plan in place. As I was talking to this young mom and the other people at my table at that luncheon, I overheard one of them go, but it's just so morbid to talk about. It's morbid to think about. I'm like, yes, it's morbid, but you have to make a plan. We're all going to die. I hear about all the advances in AI. I mean, AI is constantly changing. Things are happening at a extremely fast rate, but we haven't cheated death. At some point, we are all going to die. I don't think AI is going to change that. So we have to make a plan. We have to be realistic about what can happen, that things can happen. I always kind of giggle when people say, well, if something happens to me, when they're referencing dying. There's no if. We're all going to die. It's when. Now, there may be if something happens to me, like I get in a car accident, I become incapacitated, which means I'm stuck in the hospital for a long period of time. Maybe I've got to have multiple surgeries, have to go through rehab. I mean, there are situations where people are in the hospital for months on end after a car accident or something similar, some type of major accident. What happens to your assets? What happens to your children? So if the other parent is deceased and you're in the hospital, what happens to your children? Where are they going to go? But also, maybe you're a business owner. Many of you listening own a business. What happens to your business if you're stuck in the hospital for months at a time? Or if you suddenly pass away, you have to have a plan in place. Who's going to pay your employees? Who's going to honor contracts that you've signed? How are bills going to get paid? There are a lot of things you have to consider. If you're in a partnership, and your partner passes away, do you want to deal with the partner's spouse? Those are the things you got to think about. So you have to make a plan. You have to prepare now for the hard moments in the future, because the hard moments are going to come, aren't they? I mean, we've all been through tough times. Not a single one of us will escape this life without some difficulty in our lives, without some trials. Some people have more severe difficulties than others, but we're all going to have a difficult time. We're all going to struggle, have a trial, have something happen at some point in our lives that we've got to deal with. So we all have hard times. We all have difficulties. But when it comes to, and some of those you can't plan for. I mean, some of those you can't plan for that difficulty. This difficulty, your death or your incapacity or incompetency, you can make a plan for, and you can prepare your family for that time. You can prepare the loved ones for that period of time. So you definitely, absolutely need to have, at a minimum, a last will and testament and a power of attorney that allows someone to make decisions for you. If you're stuck in the hospital for 3 or 4 months, who's going to pay your utility bills? Seriously, those things have to be taken care of. The world doesn't stop when you've had an accident. I had some terrible times in my life. One time in particular was just horrendous time. I didn't really want to get out of bed. I made myself get out of bed because you know what? The world didn't stop. The bills still have to get paid. There's still a mortgage due. I can't call up the mortgage company and say, hey, I'm really depressed right now. I don't feel like getting out of bed. Can you just not demand my mortgage for the next, 2-3 months? Just give me a break. That ain't how it works. The mortgage still has to get paid. Utilities, if I want electricity, I got to pay the bills. So the world keeps going. The world keeps going even when you want to stop. Even when you want the world to stop, it doesn't. So if you're stuck in the hospital for months at a time, there must be someone who can take care of those things for you. So a power of attorney is just an essential document. I tell clients and people all the time, it's arguably one of the most important documents to have. And it's one of those documents you don't know how badly you need it until you need it. So get those documents in place. I mean, wherever you're at, find an estate planning attorney, an experienced estate planning attorney, to get those documents in place for you. If you're in Alabama, I can help you do that. But get them in place. All right? That's just basic taking care of your family, preparing them. But there are other things you can do as well. You don't even need an attorney to do those things. Make sure you have your beneficiaries designated. Yes, you're having to think through your death. You're having to think through what happens when I die. And if you have young children, that's really hard to think through because that means you're not there when they're growing up. But you have to go through these things right now to prepare them for those hard moments when you're not able to or you're not alive. So beneficiaries, your checking account, savings account, money market, any financial account, you can name a payable on death beneficiary. Take care of that. Don't name minor children, but take care of getting your beneficiaries designated. Have a list of your passwords, like all the websites you use, particularly like bank accounts. So you're banking, paying utilities, paying a mortgage. Make a list of all those websites where you pay your bills and what those usernames and passwords are, so someone can go in and keep paying those bills. There's no delay. There's no one having to rifle through drawers to try to find documents, to try to find information. Like, do your children even know where you have a bank account? Would they even know where to start? So having just a list of all your bank accounts, savings, checking, money market, all those things, have a list of that. And what are those usernames and passwords? Do you have retirement? Do your children even know, or your spouse even? Do they even know where the retirement, like who to contact for that? Do they even know where to start? What about life insurance policy? Do you have a life insurance policy? Where they start to get that? And your phone. So we all have cell phones. Most all of us require some sort of code to be punched in, or maybe we do the finger thing where you can just put your finger on it, whatever. So many people come to my office after their loved one dies, and they're upset because they can't get access to the phone because of all the pictures on your phone. So as you're writing down all your passwords for things, be sure you write down the passcode for your phone so that your loved one knows how to get access to your phone and get those pictures and videos off that phone, because that's what is treasured. It's the photos, the videos are the memories. That's the reminder of you. That is the reminder of times together. That is your legacy. So be sure that you write that cell phone code down for people to have access to upon your passing. And to keep all your documents together, all in one place. Don't make someone go, and I've done this before, I'm in one bedroom going through paperwork, boxes, drawers, and someone else in another bedroom going through paperwork, boxes, and drawers, trying to find life insurance policies, if there's any estate planning documents, trying to find them. So do your family a favor and put it all in one place. Now, this is going to take time. It's going to take effort. But again, you want to do this now to prepare them for the hard moments when you're dying. You do the hard things now to prepare your loved ones for those hard moments after you pass away or if you become incapacitated. These are just some simple things to think. Just kind of think through, what do you have to do every day? And if you were to pass away right now, or you were to be stuck in a hospital, how's someone going to pay the bills? Now, many of you listening are women, and I have found multiple times that the husband pays all the bills in the family. And it's just it's always what happens. One person in the family usually pays the bills. And I've found that a lot of times it's the husband who pays the bills, and you as the wife may not know where to even begin, because he just handled it. He just handled it. It's nothing on you or your character. He just handled it. So why bother with it? You need to know how to pay those bills. You need to sit down with him and y'all write down every bill that you pay, what those passwords are, those usernames. You can go in and pay without skipping a beat. It's just essential to get these things done, but also between the two of you, but also for your loved ones who will be stepping in and taking control or managing things after you pass away or if you become incapacitated. So those are just some of the steps you can take now that will make things easier when you pass away. Because again, I know you don't hate your family. I know you want what's best for them. You always have. You've always wanted what's best for your family. So why stop now? Why not do that now? Why not prepare now and do what's best for them? It also, when you prepare, it also helps reduce conflict. I've heard from multiple clients that they're concerned that their children will argue and fight upon their passing. And so they want to reduce conflict. And that's another reason why you want to do your estate planning documents, now so that when the time comes, they're not fighting. You've already put a plan in place and they're not fighting over things. All right. I hope this has been beneficial. You absolutely need to do the hard things now. I mean, if you're in Alabama, you can certainly give me a call at Huntsville Estate Planning Lawyer, 256-361-1221. But I will be happy to talk with you and assist you with that. But there are a lot of other estate planning lawyers across the state who can assist you. But get it done. I mean, just get it done. I can't stress it enough. It doesn't matter if you're 19. I've had people say, well, what age should somebody get an estate plan together? Like, I'm just now having a kid, so should I have one? And I'm like, well, 19 is when you should have an estate plan. Because if you have a bank account, many of us have bank accounts. You have a car maybe in your name. You may have certain assets that it's going to require going through probate court to get access to those assets. I once had someone pay me $1,500 to get access to a $2,000 bank account. Don't do that to your family. If you have a 19-year-old or older, they need to have a power of attorney in place. If you've got college-age kids, that's essential, because if they haven't done a power of attorney where they have named you as their agent, who's going to make decisions for them if they have an issue, if they're in the hospital? You don't have access to their medical records. You don't have the authority to make decisions if they have not given you that power of attorney. So if you're over 19, if you have someone in your life who's over 19, they need to have an estate plan in place. It's just, and it could be something very simple. Estate plans don't have to be complex. It can be simple, but just get it done. One, you don't want to rely on what the state says should happen, but you want to have the plan in place to make things as easy as possible for your family and your loved ones. So you have to do the hard thing now. You have to work through the issues of what happens upon your death, because you're going to pass away. It's just a matter of when. And we all hope that we live until we're old. But that's not always the case for people, unfortunately. And we see it every day. We see it on the news. We see it on social media. Every day we see where someone who's young has passed away. So we never know the day or the time. So make a plan. All right, this is Tanya Hendrix with Legacy Her Way. If this conversation spoke to you, then get your estate planning done, get things in order. But as for the podcast, if this has spoken to you and you don't want to miss another episode, be sure you subscribe to Legacy Her Way and wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it's Apple or Spotify. You can find us on either one. Be sure you subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're in Alabama and need an estate planning attorney, you can always reach out to me, Tanya Hendrix at Huntsville Estate Planning Lawyer, 256-361-1221. You can find me on the Facebook at Huntsville Estate Planning Lawyer, Instagram, TikTok. Website is huntsvilleestateplanninglawyers.com. All the links will be in the show notes for that. Again, thank you so much for listening. Take care of your family. I know you don't hate them. I know you love them and want what's best for them. So take care of them. All right, I'll see you in the next conversation.